Jerry, the black cat, was brave. He always led their adventures with confidence.
We're going to Alaska.
Larry, the orange cat, was strong. He wasn't very smart, though.
Alaska, is that a cat food or something?
Terry, the gray cat, was smart and clever. He was also very scared of new places.
Alaska is cold and scary.
One day, Jerry had an amazing idea.
We're going to find gold.
He loved the impressed look on Larry's face. Even Terry seemed a little bit excited about the adventure. The journey was long. They rode in a truck full of fish. The smell was awful. Larry wanted to eat all the fish. Jerry had to sit on him. Terry just complained the whole time. Finally, they reached Alaska. It was cold and snowy.
I want to go home.
The gold is up there.
Are you sure about this, Jerry?
But Jerry was already marching forward. Larry followed, slipping on the ice. Terry sighed and trailed behind. They climbed for days. The wind howled. The snow blinded them. Larry complained every step. Then they met a polar bear. It was huge. Terry fainted. Larry thought the bear was a big fluffy cat.
Let's play.
The polar bear sniffed Larry. It chuckled. Bears can't really chuckle, but this one sounded like it did.
You're funny little things. I'm Boris. What are you doing here?
Jerry explained their quest for gold.
I know these mountains like the back of my paw.
Boris offered to help. Boris led them to a hidden cave. Inside, the walls glittered. Gold.
We're rich.
Larry started stuffing gold nuggets into his mouth. Jerry stopped him.
Don't eat the gold, you goofball.
They piled the gold onto Boris's back. He carried it down the mountain for them. The cats felt like kings. They thanked Boris and waved goodbye.
What do we do now?
Let's go to Yukon. I hear they have dog sledding.
Dog sledding? Can we eat the dogs?
Terry rolled his eyes. They hitched a ride on a dog sled. The cats, Larry and Terry, were excited but also a bit nervous. They had never been on a dog sled before, and the experience was both thrilling and terrifying. The dogs were very fast. They raced through the snowy landscape with incredible speed, making the cats hold on tightly to avoid falling off. The scenery around them was a blur of white and green as they sped past trees and snow-covered hills. The wind whipped their fur. It was so strong that it felt like tiny needles pricking their skin. Despite the cold, the cats couldn't help but feel a sense of adventure. They were on their way to the Yukon, a place they had only heard stories about. Larry kept trying to bite the dogs' tails. He thought it was a fun game, but the dogs were not amused. They barked and growled, but Larry was undeterred. He was determined to make friends with them, even if it meant getting a few nips in return. Terry held on for dear life. They reached Yukon. The journey had been long and exhausting, but they had finally made it. The cats looked around in awe at the vast, snowy landscape that stretched out before them. It was even colder than Alaska. The air was crisp and biting, and the snow crunched under their paws as they walked. The cats shivered, but they were determined to make the most of their adventure. They found a dog sledding school. It was a small, rustic building with a large yard where dogs were being trained. The cats watched in fascination as the dogs practiced their skills, running and pulling sleds with ease.
We want to learn to mush. The cats approached the instructor, their eyes wide with excitement. They had always dreamed of being mushers, and now they had the chance to learn from the best.
The instructor chuckled. He had never seen cats so eager to learn dog sledding. It was an unusual request, but he admired their enthusiasm.
You're a bit small to be mushers, aren't you? The instructor looked at the cats skeptically. He wasn't sure if they had the strength and stamina needed for such a demanding activity.
Larry puffed his chest out. He wanted to prove that they were capable. He had always been the more confident of the two, and he wasn't about to let this opportunity slip away.
I'm very strong, Larry declared, his voice filled with determination. He knew that they could do it if they just had the chance. I can pull a whole team of dogs, he boasted, imagining himself leading a team of sled dogs through the snow.
The instructor sighed. He could see that the cats were determined, and he didn't want to crush their dreams.
All right, but don't blame me if this ends badly, he warned, knowing that the path ahead would be challenging for the small but spirited cats.
They were terrible at dog sledding. The cats had never tried anything like this before, and it showed. Their paws slipped and slid on the icy surface, and they could barely keep their balance. It was a sight to behold, a mix of chaos and comedy. Larry kept letting go of the reins to chase squirrels. Every time he saw one, His instincts took over, and he would dart off, leaving the sled to veer off course. It was as if he couldn't help himself. The allure of the chase was too strong. Terry screamed every time they went downhill. The steep slopes terrified him, and his yowls echoed through the snowy landscape. His fear was palpable, and it made the whole experience even more nerve-wracking for the group. Jerry was the only one who kinda got the hang of it. He managed to keep the sled steady and navigate the twists and turns with a semblance of control. His confidence grew with each run, and he became the de facto leader of their little team. One day, they were practicing on the trail. The snow was fresh and the air was crisp. They had been at it for hours, determined to improve. The forest around them was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird. A sly-looking wolf watched them from behind a tree. His eyes gleamed with cunning, and he observed their every move. He had been following them for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He saw the bags of gold on their sled. The wolf's mouth watered. The treasure was more than he had ever dreamed of, and he knew he had to have it. His mind raced with plans and schemes.
Easy pickings, the wolf thought to himself, a smug grin spreading across his face. He was confident in his ability to outsmart the cats and make off with their gold.
The wolf jumped into the path. His movements were swift and precise, a blur of fur and determination. He landed gracefully, ready to execute his plan. The dogs yelped and skidded to a halt. The sudden appearance of the wolf startled them, and they struggled to regain their footing. The sled came to an abrupt stop, throwing the cats into disarray. The cats tumbled off the sled. They landed in a heap, dazed and confused. The sudden stop had caught them off guard, and they scrambled to get back on their feet. The bags of gold flew into the air. The precious cargo was tossed high, glittering in the sunlight as it scattered across the snow. It was a chaotic scene, with gold coins raining down around them. The wolf snatched the bags in his teeth and ran off with their treasure. He moved with incredible speed, disappearing into the forest before the cats could react. Their gold was gone, and they were left in stunned silence, realizing they had been outsmarted by the sly wolf.
Our gold.
Larry started to cry. Terry joined in. The sight of their lost treasure was too much to bear. They had worked so hard, and now it was all gone. The tears flowed freely, and their hearts felt heavy with disappointment.
We'll never be rich now. All our dreams shattered in an instant. The future we had envisioned, filled with luxury and comfort, seemed to vanish before our eyes.
Jerry kicked the snow. His frustration was palpable. The cold white blanket that covered the ground seemed to mock their efforts. Every step they had taken, every plan they had made, now felt futile. He was upset, but he tried to be brave. Jerry knew that showing strength was important for the others. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions, even though inside, he felt like crumbling.
Don't worry, we'll find another way. We can't give up now. There has to be another path to our dreams. We just need to stay strong and keep looking.
But deep down, Jerry knew they were beat. The weight of their failure was too much to ignore. The hope that had once driven them forward now felt like a distant memory. They trudged back to town, their tails drooping. Each step felt heavier than the last. The journey back was filled with silence, each of them lost in their own thoughts of what could have been. They decided to return home. There was no point in staying any longer. The dream of gold had slipped through their paws, and now all they wanted was the comfort of home. The journey back was long and tiring. The rough terrain seemed even more challenging now that their spirits were low. Every rock and hill felt like an obstacle, but they pressed on, driven by the thought of home. They missed Boris and his fluffy warmth. His presence had always been a source of comfort. Without him, the cold seemed colder, and the journey felt lonelier. When they finally reached home, their human families were overjoyed. The sight of their beloved pets brought tears of joy to their eyes. The warmth of their welcome was like a balm to the cats' weary souls. They were showered with cuddles and treats. The love and affection from their humans made them feel cherished and valued. It was a reminder that they were not alone, and that they were deeply loved. As they snuggled into their warm beds, they realized something. The comfort of home, the love of their families, was worth more than any treasure. It was a feeling that gold could never replace. Home was better than gold. The warmth, the safety, the love, these were the true treasures. And in that moment, they knew they had everything they needed. And their humans loved them, even if they weren't rich. The bond they shared was priceless, and it was a treasure that would last forever.